fresh.
I think, yes,
Okay.
I see you. So
Yeah.
hello everybody, and very, very sorry for this little problem that we had. We had some problems with the stream, but they are all solved now. And we hope that everything works well. But they are all solved now.
Yes.
Just there was a tiny echo there because I just opened the YouTube chat and I will have to open the Twitch chat. But okay, everything should be fine. I think Sophie's got everything open already and she's keeping an eye on all the chats.
Yeah, I think I'm just skipping the Twitch commercial so I can also see the Twitch chat.
I'm going to open that in a second. So very, very sorry for the delay. How's everything, Sophie? I just, with all the problems, I forgot to ask you how's everything.
You forgot to ask me how
Yes, I forgot to,
No, I'm fine, thank you.
ask you about everything.
Yeah, the things are good. Oh, now I think.
Yes, probably need to mute that.
Oh, sorry, I actually didn't turn on the sound on Twitch, but I'm fine. I'm having vacation now.
Oh.
So I'm planning not to work too much and just play a lot of chess next week. And I think we will go to the Good Night in Oslo tonight.
How was last week?
So it's good. Last week was fun. Had one beer too many maybe, but it was still fun.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, so I have the Twitch chat open as well, and everything is fine. Everything's set. We can start finally. So let's go. We are going to see a new line today because we saw the Rubinstein. We have been seeing it for a little while now.
With E3?
With E3, yes. And we saw all the lines there, well, the main lines, everything there was to see there. And now we are going to move to the line with F3. I just have to flip the board because I have it from white side here.
That's what I got to play in the Blitz game.
In the Blitz game.
I don't really know what to play against, actually.
I remember, so that's what I thought. Okay, if people play this against Sophie, let's just go ahead and start with F3. And then we'll look at Queen C2 and everything else. Okay, so let's see. I think we're going to finish with F3 quite soon because I think it will be pretty clear and you're going to like this line. So they go knight c3, bishop b4.
That's nice. That's promising. Yes.
And here is where they can play f3, and the idea of f3, as it happened to you in the game, is to play f4, no? And they want to take over the center.
Yeah.
And you played castle, which exists, but here we are going to play d5.
Yeah, I remember someone wrote that in the chat.
Yeah.
Last week. That d5 is actually the move, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yes, d5 just to control the center. There is also c5 possible in this position, but we are going to go for d5. I like the positions here, and I think you are also going to like them, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, okay, now they play a3. I see people are joining, so if there are any problems with the stream, just let us know, please, because we had some before we started, and that's why we're late. Just let us know if you can hear us, if everything's fine. So here after a3 we take on c3, yeah?
Yeah.
Pawn takes. And now we're going to go for the line with c5, which is quite concrete. Things are happening very fast here after c5. White has, well, the main line here after c5 is taking on d5, and this is the move that we are going to see in the main game. There's also e3, but if they play for e3, then okay, then we are going to castle. And the idea is that whenever they will develop this bishop, we are going to take on c4, and we are winning a tempo. So usually they have to take on d5 to avoid this. And this structure looks a lot like what we were seeing last week, no? Queen c7, for example.
Yeah, I agree.
And now the idea of playing for b6 and bishop a6, right? Remember this.
Yeah.
And then ideas with e5.
Especially now with f3, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, just to open. And e5, remember the game of Volgar that we saw? It was exactly the same structure with the pawn on f3. So the point is that sooner or later they have to take on d5, and white usually does it here. C takes d5, and here what I recommend is knight takes d5. E takes d5 also exists, but I don't know, it feels like the positions that arise after pawn takes d5 are not so easy to play. And I'm going to show you again just to see more or less what the play is about here. So they play e3, and the idea is as usual, no? Bishop goes to d3, knight goes to e2, and eventually white will play for e4. That's the point. So let's say we castle, bishop d3, and we do the same with b6 and bishop a6. It's the main plan in these positions, knight e2, and we go here. White castles. This looks good so far. I mean, looks quite equal, but afterwards it feels like white has ways to play for his plan, but black doesn't really have a clear play. No, it's we'll see that there are like very ruptures and active play. And knight c6, this makes a lot of sense, and now white goes bishop b2. And the point of bishop b2 is to defend d4, because if they want to play for e4, then in this case d4 was hanging, no? Just if e4 here, if e4 you can just take, I don't know if you can see the line, just refreshing, and then here d4 is going to fall. So white has to prepare this, and they prepare it with bishop b2. Let's say we go c4 here, we have seen this idea, and now queen e2. And white will play for e4 anyway. And one of the typical ideas that black plays for in this structure is h5, because the knight on g3, as we have seen in other lines, is not so well placed. And what we do with h5 is try to harass it with h4, and of course we are kind of playing against e4. Now they won't be able to play e4 if we force the knight out of g3. But here this plan, that this is a game of Shankland, Sam Shankland against Sanikidze. And here he played queen f2, and this is a very nice idea, because now if you play h4, the pawn on h4 is a bit weak, and it's going to be difficult to defend it, no? For example, knight f5, you've lost the pawn now.
Yeah.
And it's not like you've done anything wrong.
I don't want to play g5 in this position.
No, you don't want to play that. But even here, it feels like it's easy for white to play for e4. His moves are going to be quite simple. Rook e1, and e4 is going to happen sooner or later. But for black, okay, black hasn't done anything wrong. No? Just getting the pieces out, that cannot be wrong. But here already rook e1 and e4 is coming. So these positions, okay, they look fine, but it's that kind of equality that's not equal for everybody. No? It's more equal for white than for black.
Yes.
And it's slowly...
And I think I would prefer a more dynamic position
approach, no? Yes. For example, here, he goes for knight e7, and the idea of knight e7 is to go h4, and then have knight g6. But you can already feel that this is not very comfortable.
But is that even working? Because if it would be. Yeah, I see now.
It would work because there's no knight f5.
White's knight. Yeah.
The knight has to go to h1, and this happened in the game. h4, knight h1. It looks like a terrible knight. Now knight g6, but the knight is coming out. The knight is coming out, and this center is very annoying because e5 is coming, and f4, f5 is also coming, and you play this with black, and you don't really see a way to stop all that, and not necessarily stop, but you don't find counterplay. It's kind of, we are left without ruptures here with black. For example, this happened, knight h5, and this bishop c1 is very strong. He wants to make sure
going to g5?
No, he wants to control f4. because now, okay, knight f4 happened in the game. But if he doesn't play knight f4, I'm not sure what black can do here. He plays knight f4 with the idea of getting some counterplay and maybe playing for the weak d3 square. It loses a pawn, of course, the pawn on h4. But at least, okay, he's trying to create something. Problem is, it's not that terrible. It's just a knight that's active there, and the other pieces don't make it in time. Queen g3, here he goes queen a4, knight f2. Okay, he gets the pawn back, but look at white's center, no?
Yeah.
Doesn't feel comfortable. And rook g3, and this was over quite soon. Queen f8 and f6. Okay, this is already losing for black. Takes, rook e8, and queen f5, he's preparing rook h3. I think there were other moves as well, but this is what happened, and it was over. There is no king e1 here, important. No? The last move, because
so that the rook is affected.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you go here, black was hoping for queen h3, but nothing like that. So okay, e takes d5 exists, but I wasn't very happy with those positions, so we are going to go for knight takes d5, and let's see if you like this more. I think there's more play after knight takes d5 for us. So here they go pawn takes c5. Okay, that pawn was hanging, and the idea is that we are not going to grab c3 or c5 very soon. We are, but first we have to develop the pieces. If they play something else, for example, like queen d3 here, then we can simply castle. Let's say that they don't want to take on c5. That's okay. If they go e4, we can go to e7, for example, and queen a5. And now we are threatening to take on d4. Because the pawn on c3 is pinned, and they have to take back with a piece, which leaves the pawn on c3 weak. And whenever they take on c5, you have knight a6 in this case, and you are getting the material back. And it's very difficult for white to get all the pieces out here on the king side. In fact, you'll see that he's not going for castle in these lines, and the king stays on f2 many times in most of the lines. Yes.
That sounds like a fun thing to play against.
Yeah, that sounds like more exciting, no, than what we were seeing before. Just castle and play this strategic battle. No, this is also it's all half and half. We're going to see this game. So after pawn takes c5, we go queen a5.
Yeah.
And we threaten to take one of the pawns. No, we're attacking them. Now e4 plays, and here what you have to remember is that we don't take on c3. That pawn is not for us to grab now. Let's start with queen c3, because I think this is the most obvious. Then queen bishop d2, and even if we have queen e5, we're not losing the piece yet. But this position, white already has the initiative. Bishop c3. Okay, if we take on c5, I think that's rook c1, bishop b4. That bishop b4 looks terrible if we take on c5. We're not going to castle, and if queen c7, for example, queen d6 here, this is a nice move. White is not even a pawn down, so we're just taking our pawn back, but we have a worse position here. We don't get to develop the pieces well. And if we take with the knight on c3, then white plays queen d2. And again, here we are not going to like these positions very much, because now bishop b2 is coming. We don't lose the knight, but we are losing the pawn on g7. And again, this position looks really good for white, because he has the bishop pair, and the center, the position gets open. It's like kind of not exactly what we want. So, important thing to remember.
We shouldn't be greedy.
We shouldn't be greedy, yes, because these are some pawns that we are going to take anyway. One of them is going to fall eventually, it's just a double pawn, and we can take it later in good conditions. So after e4 there are two main moves. One of them is knight f6, which is the move we are going to see, and the other one is knight to e7. But knight f6 is the move that I like most here, and this knight goes to d7 and puts pressure on c5 later on. And this knight from b8 can be developed to a6 if you need more pressure, but of course if you don't, knight c6 is going to be the move. So what does white do here? Usually they go bishop e3, defend. Now if we take on c3 again, life gets complicated because we don't get to finish development and the queen is going to be in the way of white's pieces. Everything will come out with tempo. Again, now don't be greedy, just get your pieces out. Castle short. And now white has options. We are going to see first queen b3, which did not happen in the game, but okay, we need to know how to play against this. Knight d7. We want to put pressure on the pawn, and here he goes a4. And this is a very important idea. For example, should we take on c5 here or not yet? How about knight takes c5 in this position? Do we like that?
Do we? I'm just gonna make my famous arrows. So we will have to take with the knight, of course.
Yes.
And then he can either take or he can move the queen. Maybe something like queen b4 threatens the knight, and if we take, then he takes back here, threaten our knight, and then I don't particularly like it. I think it's I don't want to exchange the queens when his king is the one being caught in the middle, and no, I don't want to take the pawn yet.
Yeah, we don't want to take the pawn yet because, well, also because we don't want to make white's structure better, no? The line you are looking at, where there's just a plate on the board, queen b4, and here we have to take. Yeah, I don't think there's any option. Takes, and what do we do with the knights now? Okay, we have to go back, but what are we going to do with the knights in the future? We have no good squares for them. So the two bishops are going to be strong. The endgame, the king is very well placed in the center now.
Yeah.
So no, this is an important idea. The idea of queen b4, this is something that I wanted to show you, that queen b4 is a threat for white. And that's why they play queen b3 and allow you to take on c5. So what we do here is play queen c7. And now we do want to take on c5 because the tricks are not there anymore. And if white goes, for example, queen a3, then in this position, we go b6. Very interesting concept that sometimes you don't fight so much for getting the pawn back, but you allow white to stay with the pawn up, because if they would take, we take back with the a pawn, our pieces are open, and these pawns are very weak. Usually one of them is going to fall. And okay, the king in the center, we're going to have nice outposts for the knights. There is knight e5 idea always. Knight can get to c4, the other knight is also coming out. For example, if knight e2, the bishop could go to a6. And we already play rook c8, and I think here, if white wants to keep the balance, they would already have to give one of the pawns back. For example, if knight d4, we take on f1. And now there are two pawns hanging. There is c3 and there is h2. We could pick up any of them, but they are not going to go anywhere, so we could just develop one more piece and be prepared to bring the other rook to c8 if needed. For example, rook c1, now we take on h2, and this position is much better for black already. The knight is going to
I also think maybe, I was just about c4 or c5.
In this position to play c4 or the knight?
I thought maybe like going something like knight e5 to c4.
Yes.
Could also be a good square for the knight, and then the other knight could go to c5 maybe.
Yes, this would be a perfect arrangement for our pieces here, I think.
I see somebody asked in the chat what happened if queen b4 instead of a4, but it's probably a while back. But did white ever had the option of exchanging queens?
Well, hold on. There was this point, I think, where we played. This is the moment where they can go queen b4, but we're not going to take on b4. Yeah, instead of a4, it's here, queen b4, and we go queen c7 anyway. And it kind of transposes probably to what we were seeing. Before. And I saw there were some questions on Twitch that I was trying to catch while you were thinking about the knight. So if there are any concrete problems with knight bd7 instead of knight fd7, it's because if we want to attack the pawns, this knight from b8 usually finds more freedom on this side. And if we keep the knight on f6, the knight from f6 is kind of not finding squares. No, we cannot get to d5. There are no squares available for our knight, so it will remain kind of bad here on f6. This is the main point. And if we bring it to d7, the other one can also get to a6 and get the pawn, but we will see that in many situations this knight from d7 is actually making it to e5. So you are improving your pieces, and this knight can either come out to c6, maybe to a6, or even d7 if it hasn't developed yet. So, okay, what happened if b6 instead of queen c7? Oh, here if we play b6, not sure if we can play b6 because of queen b4 in this position. I think there is queen b4 if we go with b6 in this position. Right? And
we don't want to exchange queens.
Yes, because I think also, okay, I'm kind of improving my pawns there. And my queen on a5 is maybe stuck, no? So I'm playing queen c7 because I'm also trying to get my pawn back. If white gives it, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to play b6 no matter what. It's an idea that's there, but if they allow me to take on c5, I will surely take that pawn. Yeah, I'm just going to install my knight on c5. That's a proud knight here. And the other one is probably going to d7 and to e5, no? So, okay, let me just see, because here we went a while back here, b6, and we are looking what happens if they take, no, on b6.
Yeah.
And okay, we saw this line until the end with queen takes h2 if they defend. Okay, so this is solved if they take. But here, okay, the best move for white is not to take on b6, but to play a5. And this is a very interesting response that keeps the position complicated. The point of a5 is to keep our structure worse as well. No? If we take on c5, we're going to have these pawns, well, we take on c5 actually, but we're going to have these pawns that are separated now rather than together with on b7 and a7. So white is also playing for some counterplay here. Now, what happens, for example, if white decides to develop with a move like knight h3, which is one of the moves that's possible here? How would we play with black?
I was just about to say that I didn't really like if white played the pawn to a6. So maybe now I would play bishop a6 to deal with that threat.
Yes, you would go bishop a6. Also because this is kind of a typical idea that we see all the time, no? And now you get you remove the bishop pair, and we're going to play this position that should be around equal. We can put this pawn on c4, knight maybe on c5 later on, knight on e5. We're going to try to use these weak squares if we can. Have to be careful with the pawn, and many times what happens is that we can lose the pawn on c4 and take the one on a5, for example. We kind of, for example, rook b8 with an equal position where I think both sides have good chances. No, you have something to do here with black, but white also has targets. So for now, we would like to play rook b3 if allowed. Rook b3, knight e5, or maybe knight c5. Then we have ideas in this position.
Yeah, I like this more than the other variant.
With e takes d5, no? It's
yeah, exactly.
Maybe more comfortable. And here you said that you don't like a6, and you are right that this is the best move for white here. And what we do on, because they don't allow us to develop the bishop, but we're going to do something similar with c4, and we are going to try to get this bishop out via d7. Knight e5, okay. Bishop d7, just slowly here. This is also about equal. Queen a5 was a game. This is Rajabo with the black pieces against Bang Hao. And knight c6. Knight e5. Okay. And on f4 he plays knight to g4. So we're not losing the pawn because of the constant threats. And the pawn on a6 is also a big target that we are going to attack. Bishop c1 if he wants to keep the bishop, and now he goes rook b8. And there is a big threat here. Yeah. What happens if they take this pawn on c4, for example?
If bishop takes c4?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, can't go there. I mean, I guess we played the move rook b8 because we wanted to go to b1 or somewhere on the b file.
Yes.
Rook b1 is a threat, of course. Oh, it's no. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe can the knight then go to f2? Because if white tries to protect it by playing king d2,
yeah,
we could probably play knight f2 or maybe rook d8.
I think knight f2 is good enough.
Pretty good.
This looks very good. You take the, now you get the rook, yeah?
Yeah.
The rook from h1. So this is a threat. The knight on g4 is quite annoying. And you have these threats of knight f2. Of course here, okay, white can play knight e2, but this is also good enough for black. I think here we could play for counterplay, probably rook d8. And there's this idea of, very interesting idea here of playing knight e5. Because we have this check on d3.
Yeah, because the other knight is going to take and threaten the bishop.
And the bishop has no squares to defend d3. This is very nice.
That's true.
This is a nice idea that you have here as well.
Mm.
So for this reason, I wanted to show you this so you see that knight f2 can be a threat at some point. So they play knight h3. And now we understand why they play this move. That could look awkward otherwise. But they need to defend f2. And now rook b1 was played.
Yeah, it still looks pretty good.
Still looks okay, no?
Yeah.
Our pawn on c4 is hanging though, so we're going to just have to give it up and take the other one. Rook b6, and we are going to take a6. It's not the only move.
Can we even do that? I mean, isn't the what do we play after rook b6, bishop takes c4?
Surprise.
Okay.
We go back and prepare for the next game.
Consider that move.
We prepare for the next game now. No. We're going to take the pawn on a6. Yeah.
Yep.
It's okay, here he played bishop e2 and h5 was a good response with an equal position. Okay, it's not a big deal. It's an endgame with equal pawns, but okay, I'm playing against c3. You have the pawn on a7. Bishop pair, but the bishops are still struggling. My knight on g4 is very strong, and the bishop on c1 is bad for now. So white cannot really use the power of the bishops here. They're probably going to take the knight on g4 at some point.
When
get
we
the knight.
take on a6 at some point,
Mhm.
what piece should we take with?
If we would play again, I think we can take with the bishop here to trade
Okay.
that bishop on e2. No?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't want to keep my knight pinned there, so maybe I can take and then take back with the rook, so I can get my knight to c5.
Then we'll also have a nice pawn on the a7 that might be ready to roll someday.
Yes, I think so. If I put my knight on c5, pawn a5, a4, I kind of like this position. No? I have a knight here.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to have high hopes for this. Okay.
Yes.
And so
I saw someone in the chat asking, yes, I am the student and Raluca is my coach. That's right. And
so this a5, we saw it here. And now that we've seen it here, I wanted to show you that a5 can also be played earlier. So instead of queen a3, what if they go a5? No? We're going to take this pawn. And here we develop this way with the knight on a6. And the idea in this position is to get the bishop out on d7 and rooks to the center. And we are going to eventually hit the pawns on c3 mostly. For example, bishop d7 here. And what they do is in this position is take on a6. Castle. And in this position e5 has been played. Makes sense, not to get some control over the center and put the bishop on e6. Improve the pieces.
Yeah, maybe even take an h3. If
maybe, yes. If white allows it, yes, maybe we can try that. They go knight f2. That's why I wasn't really thinking about bishop h3. Yeah, it's probably an annoying threat. And here. And this is again equal. No, this is the Nimzo. You're going to play equal positions now. Rook c8. Oh, and here we have a very interesting plan, because in this position what we are playing for is b6. We would be happy to get b6 and open the a file, but it looks very difficult to do that for now. So here comes the very interesting plan that black has. Go back, prepare slightly for the next game, and then play knight d7 and prepare for b6 this time.
Okay.
This is an interesting idea. No, improve the knight basically. On d7 is slightly better than on a6, slightly better, helping us out. On a6 is not doing anything for now. And we don't have knight c5. That's the issue here. We don't have knight c5 because the pawn on b7 would be hanging in the end after all the trades. We take c3, but then the rook on b7 is very powerful, and I don't think...
Yeah, it's a strong rook.
I don't think we want to allow that rook, no? To allow to get there on b7.
No, I agree.
So we can keep it, keep this threat at knight of queen c3 for a better moment. Improve the knight first. So idea, I'm going to put the arrows back, knight b8 and knight to d7. And play for b6. That's what we want to do. Okay, so this is the more positional part of
it feels
this.
like with the very quick in the beginning, and then it's slowing down in its pace.
In the middle games.
It feels like you have to strike really early in the center, and then after that you just play it very patiently.
Yes, because you kind of get equal positions, but you are black and you're not going to have equality with black is usually the supreme thing that you get, no? It's usually what you are looking for. And yeah, here it doesn't look like much, but we do get playable position where we are not worse. That's important. So queen b3 is one possibility. And then there is this idea, okay, quick king f2 is, I think, second best or best here, but we are going to transpose to the main line, so it's just a transposition, and because in our game rook b1 was played first, knight d7 and king f2. And the king is going to be fine on f2. The problem is that if he stays too long, now it's going to be difficult to get everything out of here. Like, where do you get the knight? If you put it on e2, then what do you do with the bishop? So what they do is that they put on the king on f2 and develop the rest of the pieces later. Now we play rook d8. we are threatening to take on c5 again. They go queen b3. Again, if we take on c5, queen b4, no? We've seen this idea before. We don't want to do it right now. So here we go queen c7 again. Same idea, we want to take on c5. But here white goes rook d1. And they stop our precious knight c5, because if we do it right now, we are going to lose a piece.
Yes.
And bishop takes c5. That's not something we want to allow. So what do we do here? We have a, a very nice move here played by black. Okay, of course you could play for b6 again. That's still possible. But here black goes rook f8. And this is a move that I like very much. I'm just
the opponent's king is in the f file.
Exactly, no? It makes sense to have the rook on f8 now. Before I put it on d8 because there was a queen there and I was threatening to take on c5 with tempo. It was the open file and it was mine. But now there is a white rook on d1 and I don't want to trade. And now the king is on f2, as you were saying. So I kind of want to have the rook there pointing at the king. Maybe I want to play f5.
Yeah, just not right away, of course, because of b6. But yeah, if I like a position where f5 is an option.
It is an option, yes. Later on.
Great. And somebody asked about my FIDE rating, and my FIDE is about 1800, but my Blitz rating has gone up to about 2000. That's also because of Raluca's help.
Not fault, huh?
Not fault. That's your fault.
It's my fault. I got you more into chess. Huh? I got her addicted now. So rook f8, people are saying that would be the last move to try to calculate. Yes, probably. Okay, if you are playing a game, rook f8 is not the move that comes first to your mind. But if you're studying this opening, you're going to see rook f8 in many games here, so it's not going to be a surprise anymore. So they play rook f8, and here white has options. Queen c4 is probably the most played move. We play knight a6. We want to take the pawn. And what white can do now in order to not give up the pawn just like that is play c6. And again play for making our structure slightly worse. But now with the queen on c4 there's a difference. So we have this knight e5 in between moves, so we are gaining some tempi here. Queen a4, we can play this. Okay, now they can take on a6 and we're going to have double pawns there. But we are still going to play against this pawn eventually and for the light squares. If this is not very much to your liking, you can also take on c6 and play similar to other variations that we saw, with c5 and maybe c4, knight e5 later on. We saw this idea.
Kind of like the open b file here.
Yeah, can play rook b8.
Yeah.
This is also fine for black. I mean, this structure is also okay. But this would be the difference, that here you have this extra knight e5 if you want. And now we are going to understand why here white plays queen b5. Because queen b5, he wants to play c6 if knight a6. And now you do have to take. Okay, we get this position, which is not bad either. Like here we have, queen d3, we have knight e5, we have knight c5, we have queen a5. They are all fine. But white's little victory here would be that he managed to force us to take with the pawn on c6. And we're not attacking the pawn on c3 directly. So this could have been played. Yeah, knight a6 is still possible. But black went for b6 and play for the initiative. Since white hasn't developed yet fully, the king is still on f2. Makes sense to kind of push for development. Takes. Now a3 is hanging, c3 is hanging, so he goes for queen b2 and knight c5. And our pieces are very harmonious. Now there are threats of knight a4 maybe at some point. Not sure if right away, because the pawn on b6 is hanging even if we take on c3. But the threat is there. You could start with knight d7 if you want, defend the pawn, and then you play knight a4. One needs to be careful with all these things. So here he goes bishop b5. Now control the light squares. What do we do in this position? Theory is over already. We're just trying to understand ideas.
We could go for the bishop a6 idea.
Bishop a6.
Because otherwise we should put the bishop on b7, but then it's pointing.
Nowhere, no?
I don't really like it pointing into these white pawns.
Yeah.
So I think maybe putting it on a6 and try to exchange this better.
We could play bishop a6. Maybe about bishop a6, you're kind of closing your rook, no? Maybe the knight on a6 is not greatly placed, but you could definitely.
No.
You could play bishop a6, but you could also play bishop d7. If that's the other option that you have.
Is it bishop d7, or could we also put the knight on d7?
I'd rather first trade the bishop and then put the knight on d7, no? So I can fight for the light squares in this position. Because what I want to do is eventually get my knight all the way to e5, c4, and if d3 is possible and available, why not? We can also put the knight there. But to do that, I'm going to need to get rid of this bishop first.
Yeah.
That's defending everything. So here we go, bishop d7. Now, if they take, they help us develop the knight towards the square that we wanted. And that's why bishop d7 is maybe slightly better as an idea. Okay, and now he goes c4. What do we do here?
There's something going on. It's not going on yet, but there's something about d3 that's looking a little bit like. But I don't see any way to distract the rook on d1, protecting everything. Yeah, what's going on now? We could follow the plan and take on b5 and then go knight d7, but maybe he will probably take back with the queen and.
No, I think if they play c4, they want to take with the pawn
to connect the pawns.
Yeah, that would be the point of c4. Otherwise, why play c4 here?
Yeah.
Okay, but how's that? Is that good? Is that bad for us?
This.
And how about the chat? What do you guys think? What do we play here?
Yeah. This is very positional, so I might need some help. Knight. Tweedledee. Suggest knight b to d3. Knight b d3.
Yeah, it would be nice, but it's illegal.
Yeah. Yeah? It would be nice, but it's illegal. Okay, I missed the last part. I was just, but that's true. That's illegal. That would be a good move if it was. I would consider knight a6. David's writes, and Rahul. I think maybe this is the position. Rook d1, rook d8. I think it's what. Bishop d. Oh, maybe this was the move before. Rook d8. So rook d8 is being suggested. Illegal knight to d3, knight b to d3 is being suggested. Oh yeah, that would be or knight a6 is also being, but I don't really see what the knight is doing on a6 right now. Just gonna see, what about switch? Knight c6 to e5 to d3. Well, it's going for the board.
For d3.
So okay, let me just see if I like that. Knight c6 here. here. If we could do that all in one move, of course, it would be great. He can always take one of the knights with his dark squared bishop, but I don't think we would be sad about that because that's a quite good bishop he has there.
Do we have
Maybe.
Queen
It seems
A7?
pretty
I think we have a very strong player in the chat on YouTube.
Queen A7. Queen A7. That sounds. Who's Samuel's GM, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have Queen A7?
Maybe we have.
It's a pawn, so maybe we. I'm gonna go with the GM, and I'm gonna go say Queen A7.
And you're going to go for Queen A7.
Even though more people are suggesting Knight D6, but I'm just gonna not go.
So we are giving up on our idea of taking on B5. I see. Yes. I see we don't want to take...
Yes, we give up about that.
No, we know he really is a GM. We're not laughing about that. We know him. So, okay, we don't want to take on B5, eh? Why don't we want to take on B5 and remove that bishop? Why not? Why don't we want to remove the light square bishop?
Well, because it's... because he takes back with the pawn, and then he can create a passed pawn sometime in the future, maybe.
Yeah, but that pawn is not advancing. No, the pawn on A3 is stuck on A3. The knight on C5 is a great knight. No, here we do take on B5.
Oh, okay.
Here we do take on B5, and the problem with C4, White's last move C4 was not the best move in this position, because now all the light squares will be weak. So D3 is suddenly very good looking. No, when you play C4, we suddenly have all these ideas. And this position is okay. Queen B5 was what you are thinking first. Now we could take on A3, but you could also play knight to D7 and go for E5, and this position is already better for black. Queen B2 here, and white has many weaknesses here. Bishop takes C5.
That's very good.
I think you could take either way here. Queen C5 and take on A3, but B takes C5 also looks good.
We can take with the,
You can take this way.
Okay.
I like this to have an outpost on D4 as well. And Rook A4 is coming. I'm also attacking C4 later. If necessary. So Queen B5 is not good, and C takes B5. We have knight D7, and my knight is getting to E5 now.
To D3.
To D3. And how about bishop D4?
D3.
So we are playing knight B to D3 in the end, no?
Then the question is if we want to, we have to protect G7s, we have to do something about that. So if we can play E5, but that is where we wanted to put the knight, but I don't think we can get the knight there right now. I'm just seeing how we can even, I don't like playing F6. And G6 I also don't like, so we have to defend it some other way. So I think right now I can only see E5 as an option.
Okay, and
but
what
maybe there is that the move?
That is the move. And what happens if bishop
Okay,
E3?
good.
So bishop E3 and the white has succeeded. No, you're not playing knight E5. How is this position? What do we do now?
Maybe we double in the A file, rook A4, and then the other rook goes to A8.
Okay.
Or
what other things are there? Rook A5 can be possible.
yeah, I'm gonna see if the chat has any. Queen A7 still an idea?
Sure. Yes, Queen A7 is still an idea. Yes. What else? What else? What else?
Knight e6. So the other knight can go to c5. Maybe that's the idea. Knight a4 is also being okay. That was two interesting moves. I'm just gonna see if any of them works. So this was idea 1. Can you see my arrows?
Yes.
Yes. So I like the idea in this move, which I think is that the other knight can then jump to c5, and it will be easier for the knight on e6 to find another square or just stay there. And then the other idea was putting the knight on a4, because then maybe it can go here, or again maybe it can just go there and then the other knight can go. I like the idea about moving the knight on c5 so the other knight can go there. I'm not sure if e6 or a4 is better.
Okay, but I think you guys are forgetting that white is also going to have some moves, and on knight a4 there's knight e2.
Yeah, maybe. Not looking very much at that.
And if knight e6, I'm also thinking about knight e2, and I like the square d5 for my knight with white, and if I can make it to d5, my position is not bad anymore.
Now, both in Twitch and YouTube, somebody's suggesting Nisach and David are mentioning f5.
Yes, and I think f5 is an idea that has been forgotten, no?
Yeah, I think so. I forgot about my f5 idea.
F5, no? Okay, yes, knight a4 can be played, and knight e6 and rook a4 is an idea, and rook a5, but f5 looks
much very ambitious.
If you see a5 in this position, you'll probably look at f5 first, and then if that doesn't work, okay, rook a5, queen a7, there are all ideas. But the king is still on f2, and we can still try to attack it. So what happens after f5? Let's see. f5 was played, white went queen a2, gave a check here, king h8, and now he takes on f5, probably forced, no? Otherwise things are hanging there. Yes, knight a4, the queen wasn't attacked, but do I have, maybe I can play queen a2 again, no? Give a check, or queen b3, and then knight e2. Someone was saying that knight a4 in the other line. Queen b3, I think. No, hold on, knight a4, wait. So you guys were asking about knight a4. Let me just go back here. Knight a4.
Yeah, here.
Knight a4. I was thinking about playing queen b3 here, no? What's going on here? Can I go queen b3?
Can you refresh?
Yes.
Or did you have, yeah, okay, like this.
How about queen b3? Okay, you want to play knight c5 here, is that it? Because knight c3, I thought I have rook c1 in this position. But you want to play knight to c5, and that's a move that I don't like.
For black.
Yes, yeah, no, I like
because
for black I like it, for black I don't. But knight c3 there's rook c1.
Okay.
Knight c3 there's rook c1.
Yeah.
But
and
you have knight
c5.
c5. You have knight c5,
also
which is knight d to c5. Rook c1
yeah.
here. I just move queen d6 maybe, or queen. Just move my queen away. How's that? Maybe I can play queen b4. Yes. So I can play queen b4. I'm getting some help here. To meet knight c3 with rook takes d7. And now knight c5 is not coming with tempo, no? This is probably the solution to knight a4. I don't know if you can see it, Sophie. Queen b4, can you see it now? On the board?
Yeah, I can see it now.
So the point is that if knight c3, there is rook d7, and the knight on c3 is hanging. And on knight c5, okay, knight e2 probably, no? The knights are not getting there.
Yeah, we're not threatening anything right away.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see this. f5, queen a2 here, and pawn takes f5. we were looking at this.
Yeah.
What do we do here with black, no?
My first thought is to take an f5. But also maybe we should look at e4. But I think then I like taking an f5 first and then playing e4 or knight e4.
Okay, you can do that. Rook f5 is possible, but
Yeah.
e4 looks more forcing here, no? If they take, everything comes with check, and you are taking all the material back, probably with interest.
Yeah, but I think what okay, so if they don't, what I was afraid of is if they just pass it, if they play f4, but then we get d3 for our knight. Yes.
Yes, if f4.
Yeah.
I think this position is very bad. You have knight d3, you have rook f5.
I can see people in both chat also loved e4.
Yeah, it does look like a good continuation here, no? Knight e2 is probably better, maybe transposes to the line that you were thinking about. Although here we don't have to take on f5, but we could go for knight d3, and here we have this pawn takes f3. The knight on e2 is hanging, and now when they take on f3, we play knight e5. So you're going to take f5 at some point, but in the meantime, you've ruined the king side, no? For white. You have good prospects of attack here. Knight c5 can also be played. But he goes g4 in the game. And this looks very ugly for white. And black goes knight e5. Very natural. Get the knight in the center. Now we're looking at g4. We could threaten to take on f3 and take on g4 next. Yeah? Remove the defender. If they take back, I have knight g4. And of course, knight d3 is always there in the air to to take care of. So white goes rook d4. Makes sense. I defend the pawn. If you take on f3, I'm going to have g4 defended. Takes. I'm defending this guy here. So what do we do here with black? How do we play this position?
These positions, I think, are so hard because you have some. It seems like you have such a strong attack, but it just take a few inaccurate moves, and then you've lost it, or you just
drop some of the advantage, no?
Yeah. Suddenly, your opponent finds a way out.
Because you feel like you're winning, but there's no material. There's no extra material, no?
Yeah, exactly. I can't just start to exchange everything, and I have to be careful about the moves. Also, there are so many things going on, like both, of course, here with the white king, but also a little bit still with like if there's something going on in the A file. And maybe knight d3 is good, but knight d3.
It's probably just king g2 is what white wants, no? Get the king out, and what do you do next? This is kind of an important moment, no? Because all your threats are parried, and what do we do? E takes f3 is a suggestion. I see a knight d3. Okay, then I will have to play king g2, I guess. And what's the idea? Queen b7 maybe. I feel like I should be defending there. There's rook f4, maybe. There's rook f1 as well.
Could it make sense to go... I kind of want to use my queen more actively. If we could play something like queen e7, because from e7 it would be both targeting the square h4, but also looking a little bit at this, so we could maybe give a check here and then take with the rook on a3.
Okay, that looks interesting. Yeah. The idea, okay, someone is suggesting to also use the rook on a8. That's what you're trying to do, but also, okay, of course you have the idea of bringing the rook towards the center, but what I wanted to say here is that we kind of want to keep the center the way it is, because here we keep the tension when we're not helping white develop. Now with the pawn on e4, white cannot develop this knight from g1, no? His pieces are still stuck. Cannot go knight e2, cannot go knight h3, the pawn on f3 will be hanging. But when we take on f3, it feels like we are losing some of the momentum here. Take on f3, suddenly the pieces get out. No, this is something that we don't want to lose here. Queen e7, this is a move that I hadn't considered here, but it does look very interesting. Maybe because you want to play queen h4 and you want to play knight d3.
Yeah.
You could also play like this, huh? Maybe king g3 here to stop all that. Both threats, I mean. King g3, get out of...
can you refresh the board?
Yeah, just 1 second.
Yeah.
So here, queen e7. I was just thinking about, no, maybe king g3, although this doesn't look good either. But, like, what would you play after king g3, for example?
Thinking it, I'm looking at I'm actually knight. No, then the queen can take. I was just looking at knight e6, because if the pawn takes, it would be quite interesting, because we could take here and then both the queen and the bishop is hanging, and maybe there's something with f3, but I think queen can just take, so it's not really working. But still, just maybe moving the knight, maybe knight c to d3, and then attacking a3.
Aren't you losing e4 there? Knight c to d3. I don't know if that's a pawn you can... Rook a3, no? But that pawn on e4 was an important pawn in the position. Not sure if it's something we want to give up that easily. But I like this idea h5, no? That's suggested here. Now with the king on g3 makes more sense to play h5.
h5 now?
No? Yeah, I like this idea. Makes a lot of sense to play h5. Is interesting.
Yeah, it's here in the... Mohammed says g6 is what Tal would play. I think it's maybe before...
To open the position. No, I think here he means g6. Yes, because he wants to attack f3. Sure, it's a move that you can consider. And there is this... What is this? E takes f3, knight f3, and rook takes a3, because there's a knight e4. Interesting, no? You see? E takes f3, and the idea is that... I'm going to refresh. The idea is that if you take... he wants to take on a3. Because there's a knight e4 check.
Ah, that's how you get my plan to work.
Wait. Knight e4 check. But is that so great for me? I'm like losing a bunch of pieces there, no? Queen a3, knight e4, I take.
Yes.
You're losing e5 as well. I don't think... We need to count well, eh? We need to really count here. Knight e4 is what you want to do.
I think you're...
Take here. No, you're losing too many pieces here. And I take on e5?
Yeah, I think you're right. That's a book and to... yeah.
Always have to count.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Otherwise, it does look very interesting. So here, rook a3 doesn't work, unfortunately. But no, h5 looks interesting, no? And the attack goes on. And there is another move here that's very interesting, and the concept of the move is very interesting, that you want to trade white's most active pieces and basically the piece that defends everything, the rook on d4.
So we put a rook on d8.
So rook d8 is very strong here. Actually, I think white is already lost after rook d8. Because without the rook, all the threats will be happening. Let's say he takes and play something like queen e2 just to bring the queen over. But now I can take on f3, no? And knight g4. Everything is falling now. This is probably over because rook e8 is coming. And then the bishop on e3 is hanging. The rook e8 was very, very strong here. But it was not played in the game. In the game he played rook e8, which makes a lot of sense, but we'll see that white gets some chances after rook e8. The idea of rook e8 is not... there is an idea behind rook e8, and the idea is that he wants to keep an eye on e3. So it's not a move that's not threatening anything, because there will be discovered checks, like I can play knight d3 at some point. Suppose I take on f3, there will be some knight d3 and the bishop on e3 is hanging. This would be the idea of rook e8. The problem is that queen e2 now seems to be defending very well. I defend e3 and still nothing happening on g4. Still feels like black should be winning, but it kind of slips through the fingers. No, it's that kind of position that...
Yeah, that's the feeling I'm talking about. I sometimes get when I'm playing.
It's not the position where you go tactics, bam, bam, and you'll win. No, it's you have to still find some moves here. And this is another moment.
Maybe this is the time to play g6. No?
This is a moment to think about things. Yes, g6 could be an idea here.
Yeah.
G6 could definitely be an idea. And then I want to take on f3. And what if they take on e4 after g6? What do you play after that? What if
they take
I'm going to make some errors? Like pawn takes e4. What do you want to do after that? What do we do then? Pawn takes e4.
64.
Silence, not so easy.
No, because I maybe take on f5, but I'm just trying to find out if there's if it's winning. Like then take here. Then I guess he can take back. Not sure with what pawn is the best. Maybe this one, so that
maybe to keep the e5 closed.
There's still something, yeah. And
knight g4 is also tempting.
Yeah, I was looking at it, but I just is it.
Okay, so what's the idea? Knight g4 after
knight g4
after g6, no? G6 pawn takes.
Yeah,
e4.
sorry. Just
knight g4.
Oh.
So what if I take?
G6, take. Queen takes.
I think the idea was to take on e4, but I'm defending. Once I take on g4, I take with the rook. There is some g takes f5, but I take on e8 in that position. And the rook on f8 is hanging. Pawn takes g4, I take on f8, no?
Can you show me that line? Because I'm not very good at visualizing right now.
So we're looking at g6. Let me just... pawn takes here. Let me just refresh. Here, and here knight g4 was suggested. And I'm thinking that what happens if I take? No, this would be the big question.
Yeah.
And I imagine the idea would be to take on e4. But just rook takes, no? And there is no... Oh, I even have bishop d4. I missed this. No, there is this. I can't take on f5 because there's bishop d4 in this position.
Yeah.
This is winning. So I don't need any...
Then...
Is there anything here?
Could we take the rook first? and then take with instead of playing f5, taking on f5, could we take the rook on e4 and then take with the rook on f5? What is but then we're just down a whole lot of material.
Yes, 2 pieces and nothing to
and
attack
you can play
with.
knight f3. No, it's yeah.
Nothing more to attack. No, I think this is not working here. No, knight g4, queen g4. Everything seems to be defended. Okay, we have some interesting ideas here. One of them would be h5 that you guys were spotting before, and we can still play it. But h5, h3, no? And the question remains, what do you do next? You can still play for rook d8 to trade this rook.
And then we maybe play,
And then there's this idea that's very... Sorry?
No, I think, what is
Go
the
ahead.
other idea? I think I might have could we then play h4 and then say that g3 is really
after h5, h3, no?
like a sore spot, because h5, h3, h4, and then
threaten things with the knight d3.
Like playing, knight d3, and then there's a square here for the queen.
You can play h5. h5, h4 is an idea.
White might be able to defend.
Yeah, I don't know if there's... Maybe I just have to move my king away, no? On h4, just king g2 maybe I have to play.
Oh, a lot of people, or several people, are asking if in the last position, I'm not sure exactly where that is,
When we were...
Look at queen takes c3 with rook?
So,
Queen.
When we were sacrificing everything on g6 here, knight takes, I take, here, queen c2 here. I have, okay, queen c2, king f3, there's queen d1. Okay, let's try to calculate, guys, because we are trying to train here. So if we are, we don't just play moves on the board. So let's calculate. Queen c2, king f3, queen d1 is what you want, but hold on. So you want to take on g4, and when I take with my rook, you want to take on e3, but that's still a piece up, no? You are looking at this, and I'm trying to figure out king f3, which seems forced, It's the only way to defend my precious rook. And there is a check here when I was considering going to g3. Can I go to g3 in that position? g3 or g2? Where do I go? Maybe g2, so there's nothing...
And we want
There's
more
also
than a draw, from, maybe not from this position, but from before.
King g3. Yes, we would like to have more than a draw, yes, of course.
Yes.
Queen c2 and king g3.
Maybe
Let's see what this is. So come on, let's see queen c2. I'm thinking here. Okay, rook takes f5, I should always have a way to cover, no? And pawn takes, I always have the bishop d4 threat, so I am still doing fine here. And there is a check here. And here I can go to g3, I was thinking. Not sure if there's a difference between, big difference between king g3 or king g2, but let's say here. And what I'm thinking is, this is the line that I was suggesting, that if rook e3, I can cover with my knight, and I'm still a piece up in this position.
Oh, but can you do that? Oh, there you can... Sorry, it's because, can you refresh the board?
Can you see it now? Sorry, queen c2. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you should see. Here. And rook e3, there's knight f3. And I will have rook f4 or rook f1 to defend.
Yeah.
Okay. So here, okay, I wanted to show you this a nice idea that Black found. He plays queen e7 in this position. And queen e7 is very kind of tricky, because queen e7 kind of looks at h4. But the biggest threat of queen e7 is to attack e3, as we were seeing before. So he wants to take on f3, followed by the knight d3, and the bishop on e3 will be hanging. And this move forces white to take on e4. And after pawn takes e4, he's created this target on e4. It's not my pawn there anymore, and now I can play queen b7, and now I attack e4. It's a very nice idea, no? That black found here. I want to play knight e4 and continue my attack.
And queen h4 is not going to instead of queen b7,
yes, queen h4
here.
Yes, queen h4 does exist, and you want to take g4.
And then, yeah, I think so.
Yes, this also exists. Yeah, it can also be played.
Okay.
And it's still fine for. Well, fine. It's very good for black still.
How much? We haven't even sacrificed. Yeah, we sacrificed a few pawns.
A few
we
pawns.
haven't sacrificed any
pieces.
That doesn't count.
We can still we keep them for later. So queen b7. No, very nice idea. Yes, queen h4 and knight g4, but somehow this looks very threatening against the king. Knight takes e4 looks very threatening. And here, white has only one move to keep the position somewhat balanced. Maybe balanced is not the word, but complicated. And that's king f1, just to get out of the check on e4. But of course, this is the idea is to play queen g2 here and get this pin. But this is still looking good for black. And here we have various ways to defend. We have, for example, knight g6, because that's pinned. And we will continue with the attack. But okay, king f1 probably very difficult to find, especially after having to find so many good moves to defend. And he played bishop d2 here. And after bishop d2, the position is lost. What do we play here with black? We have a few good moves. Just want to see your preference.
Maybe knight g6 can still be played because we're then attacking e4.
Yes, knight g6 can still be played. Yes.
Now he did, Now he did not get out of the. Can we even take an e4? Let me just take.
You want to take on. And what if I take with?
No, I don't think it's
queen?
working. I was just maybe I had some with the queen instead. Yeah, that doesn't.
You want to give a discovered attack like knight d3 or knight g4, but I think I've got that
but
covered.
None of them are what we. Yeah.
Okay, knight g6 is one solution here, because what you want to do is attack attack e4, no? Knight g4, exactly, that's what one move that I thought that you guys would see. Knight g4 is also an option here, because then you take on e4, and let's just see this line that was suggested. This was not played, but this is also possible, no? Because now what I want to do is take on d2, and the rook is hanging. And
that's a good point.
If white takes, this is also very good for black. Now I want to take on f5. And not only on f5. And the move that was played is, I see it in the Twitch chat as well, knight e to d3. This is also forced. And you're taking on e4, right? I suppose this is the idea. If rook takes d3, then you take on e4.
Yeah.
And if king goes here, you have a check, and you are losing the queen. Rook takes e2, and the rook on h1 is still hanging. And if king to e1, then you have the pin, no? Knight takes d2. And the rook is hanging. So rook takes d3 loses, and he played king to g2. And what do we take on e4 with? You wanted to take on e4, what do we take with?
Not the queen.
Not the queen. Good point, Sophie.
Not the queen. Not the queen. Well, so then it's 50-50, right?
50-50, yes.
Okay, so if I take with the rook.
Yes. Rook takes. I take back with the rook.
He has to take back with the rook. And then I don't want to exchange queens, so then I should take with the knight on e4. And then I'm threatening a discovered attack check, but then maybe he can take on d3 and then go in between with queen f3.
Yeah, or knight f3. No,
does it make sense?
Yes, yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, it does make sense. If I take with the knight, then and he takes back, I take with the rook. Then he can't take my knight on d3. If I take with the knight first,
yeah,
I think I prefer taking with the knight, but I'm not completely done calculating it. I think taking with the knight and then queen takes here maybe, and then I have then I can take here if nothing else.
And you can take there, and when I play knight to knight to f3, what happens? You want to take and rook e2, king g3.
But then have I not won anything there?
I don't think so.
I haven't.
Haven't won anything.
I'm just gonna
it's
look
complicated. Rook
e4,
look. Okay, rook e4, someone's helping you out there.
Rook e4 is more forcing.
Okay, rook e4 is the move. After knight e4, there's also queen f3. That can be played. Queen f3 is also a possibility. Like not taking anything, but trying to pin. And then the idea that you are looking at what happens if queen takes d3 is unclear, no? Knight d2, knight f3, there's a rook e2, but I have king g3. Maybe that works, but let's see, how is this? Knight f3, takes, there's a check, and king g3.
Oh, can you refresh?
Sure, sorry.
Board?
So queen d3, we are looking at this, go here, there is a check, and king g3, and not sure if this is winning, no? Have I run out of bullets?
No.
Maybe. Queen e7, rook d3.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe, no? Not so easy still. But rook e4 is the move here. Rook e4. Question what happens after rook e4.
So then it's something else than taking.
Yes, because if you take, we have more or less the same line, no?
Yeah.
King g3, rook e3 in the final position, I could just take on e3, no? The rook is not defended. You take on h1, but okay.
Here we can we just play rook e8, maybe?
Nice. But you have to see this before you play rook e4. This is the point. This is the point of rook e4, because now you play rook e8, and then this should be over. King f1
yeah, I
was
see
played.
The chat has it as well on Twitch and on YouTube as well.
Was not an easy position, but a very nice find here. He plays knight e5. This should be winning easily, although mistakes still happened here. I think maybe they were also low on time, because it's move 34 here. Knight h3. He goes knight c4. And here knight g5 was white's move. How do we win this? What do we play here with black?
That's a nice one.
Which one?
Rook e1, yes?
Rook e1, yes. That's the most forcing one.
Yeah.
Rook e1 wins on the spot. So I think they were low on time here because they would probably, black would probably see this. This is a game between Volkov and Lazaro Brusson. So here after bishop e1, what do you play?
Knight e3.
And you win the queen, no? And if king f2, then you just go rook e2. And this is over. But in the game, he played rook g4, and this is a mistake. Here, what should white play? You can just flip the board. What do you play with white?
Oh, okay, so we can take the queen and b7.
Yes. So we take on b7, yes? This is...
And then he take on d2, probably?
No, takes the queen.
Should he take on d2 first?
Ah, okay, knight d2.
Oh, but d2 is check. So I thought maybe that's more forcing.
Makes sense. And then? I don't know if you see it, knight d2. I just played it on the board.
Yeah. Then king e2.
King e2, I think, okay, maybe this is what happened, no? That on king e2...
Maybe not king, yeah. And then rook, no, the rook can't go to, to g2. Then take the queen.
You take the queen, and you take, there's a knight. We take here, rook takes here. And this should be winning for black, no?
Yeah, I agree.
This is a piece up. But here there is king f2, which is not so clear. Because now when we take the queen, which we have to, and we go here. I don't know if you, can you see the board?
Yeah, I can see the board.
Rook e1. This is becoming very tricky.
Yeah, now he can't take.
Now we're threatening mate on e8. And if, if knight d6, what do you play if knight d6? Nice.
I play
idea.
knight f7.
Knight f7 you play, and that's getting the piece back with very good position. So knight d6 doesn't work, and there is g6. And now he doesn't have to take, no? Can play f6, probably.
Yeah.
And the same threats are there with rook e8. And on rook f4, unfortunately, there is king e3, and he's getting the piece back. So this was not as easy as it looks. So my guess is that here they were running out of time, and they saw the idea that you were pointing out here, Sophie, with king e2, and that here after all the trades, black will be a piece up. I've flipped the board back, but there is this nice move of king f2 and all the threats against the king on the back rank. Pretty ideas. Imagine if white could have made a draw here after all the suffering. But here in the game he took on g4, and now after queen h1 the game is over. Queen h2, and knight d2, and this is knight f2 over. King e3, knight c5. Wait, there's more. Wait, I'm just going to go back to the position. King e3. Oh, knight c5, this is like a study now. No, but knight c5, I'm not going to take the rook, no? That's what, knight d3, or am I going to take the rook? Where is the knight going? So I take on f4, knight d3, king e3. I'm getting the piece, no? It's getting the piece, and I keep the pawn. Knight e1, I take on d2. I think now white's winning.
Yeah.
Extra pawn. Surprise. No, yes, knight c5 doesn't seem to work. But here just rook f6 probably and play this endgame. King d2. Complicated endgame still.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was all for today. Sorry for being late today, starting a little late.
Really
but,
nice game.
I think we've made it for this. Yes, it was a very nice game. All these ideas with f5 later on, no? Against the king on f2 that we saw, all these are very important. So knight d7 here, important idea. And here on queen b3. Remember not to take on c5 because of queen b4, but go queen c7, and here rook f8, important move. So that's it for today. Thank you all for joining our stream, and thank you, Sophie, for being such a great student.
Thank you so much for the Raluca. Thank you for being an excellent coach.
Thank you. And okay,
I think I will try to play some Nimzo-Indian tonight.
I think there's only a few things that we haven't seen, with queen c2, of course, being the most important one. We will probably start discussing it next week. And of course, don't forget to check out coaches.com, who is the website that's making these lessons possible. You're going to find great coaches there. So if you need to improve your chess, please go ahead and check the coaches there. The booking process is very easy. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can just send a message. Great. So thank you all very much, and I hope to see you next week, maybe same time. Not sure how Norway Chess has the schedule next week, but we will definitely make it work around it. So thank you guys. See you soon. Bye.